Let's start with a game. What comes to mind when you think drug trade? Nigeria wasn't the first thing that came to your mind. You're most likely thinking Latin American countries, the drug cartels, and their very iconic cartel bosses. What if I told you that African countries held a very significant role in the drug trade, more significant than you can imagine, most especially Nigeria? See, in the late 80s and early 90s, Nigeria, with its over 200 million population, served not only as a transit hub for South Asian drugs heading towards Europe, the United States, and other parts of Africa, but also provided people who helped in transporting these drugs. See, over the past couple of weeks, I've been going down this rabbit hole of drug trades in Nigeria, and it's wild. From missing drug parcels to death by firing squad, to unidentifiable people, to corruption in the drug agency that was created for it. The list is endless. And the more you dig into these stories, the more dangerous they become. Nigerians dealing with drugs can be tied back to World War II. Although an unusual place to start, the African participation in World War II is a part of history that is less spoken about. And the returning Nigerian soldiers came with cannabis, which led to its spread and usage. The first evidence of Nigerians' involvement in drug trade can be found in the 1966 Indian Hemp Decree that was enacted by Major General John Akubo Eze. The content of this decree showed that Nigerians at the time had been importing and exporting cannabis. This decree, although well received, was cut short by the Nigerian Civil War. And where the war ended, successive governments tried and failed to address the drug problem that was becoming persistent. Enters General Muhammadu Buhari. General Muhammadu Buhari, along with his chief of staffs, Major General Tunde Diagbon, promised to correct the ills in the society. One of the initiatives put in place to achieve this was the war against indiscipline.
It is my pleasure, therefore, to declare today the launching day for the war against indiscipline.
As part of the war against indiscipline, a number of decrees were enacted. The infamous one amongst them is the Miscellaneous Offence Decree number 20, which was retroactive in its application and made drug trafficking an offence that was punishable by death. This led to a number of public executions, and it continued until his government was overthrown in a coup led by General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, popularly known as IBB, by September 1895. The reign of IBB is where the story gets interesting, because although it created the main player in this story, the Nigerian Drug Law Enforcement Agency, backed by Decree number 48 of the 1989 Constitution, his regime was anything but perfect. It was filled with lots of corruption scandal, and is believed to have been one of the most corrupt governments in Nigerian history. And the agency was not left out. Nigeria in the 80s and the 90s, contrary to the popular belief of the good old days, was quite difficult. And one of the many indicators to this was the rise of the drug barons and drug mafians in Nigeria. The most renowned example of this was the case of a man by name Mr. John Brown Akubo Eze. See, the story of Mr. John Brown Akubo Eze is bigger than him, because he exposed the NDLEA and the many corruptions that had been going on the agency. See, let's pause and talk about the NDLEA for a minute. The NDLEA and corruption seem to be two toxic lovers that refuse to let each other go. For context, after the creation of the agency on December 29, 1989, a man by name Mr. Fidelis Oyakilomi, who at the time was a former police commissioner and also a former military governor of Rivers State, was appointed as his very first chairman. Just a few years after his appointment, Mr. Oyakilomi scored the agency their first scandal with a woman by name Miss Jennifer Madike. Miss Jennifer Madike was a Lagos socialite at the time and the president of Biofrica Ventures, a business that was owned by her. She approached Linus Odilibe and Chief Sam Ifeanyi, who were both relatives of a suspected and wanted drug baron by name Greg Odilibe. She promised that with her influence, she would be able to get him off the hook with the NDLEA and requested for a sum of ₦1 million to be paid to her. She went on to collect 4 installments of 200,000. Her relationship with Mr. Oyakilome was one that, in the heat of the saga, seemed to be overlooked. Mr. Oyakilome was once the chairman of her company, and it was reported that they had a long personal relationship with each other. In a bid for her to fulfill the aim she collected the money for, she reportedly forged a signature from the then wife of the president, Mariam Ibrahim Babangida, with the aim of coercing Mr. Oyakilome to take off Greg Odilibe's name from the wanted list. This obviously failed, and eventually all hell was let loose when the relatives of Greg Odilibe sent a petition to the office of the NDLEA chairman. This sparked a series of investigation and court cases that would be the biggest of its time. The case ended with Ms. Madike being sentenced to prison on the charges of stealing and corruption, whereas Mr. Oyakilome was cleared of every wrongdoing. However, he was removed as the NDLEA chairman, and it's worthy to note that though he was cleared of all charges, report shows that Mr. Oyakilome wasn't exactly innocent, and this marked the first of many scandals that will happen with the NDLEA. Now back to the story of Mr. John Brown. On the 22nd of December 1993, he was arrested at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport in connection to 2 containers that were flagged at the Lagos seaport. The boat contained about 649 wraps of heroin, and it was estimated to be about 651 million euros. This was the biggest bust as at then. But the story gets a lot more interesting. On February 1st, 1994, Olufunmilayo Oni-Okpako, a judge and the chairman of the special tribunal that was trying Akubo Eze, visited the NDLEA office at Ikoyi, only to discover that 8 out of the 649 wraps have been missing, and she ordered for the remaining wraps to be burnt. But on the day they were going to be burnt, another 4 wraps went missing. The value of the 12 missing wraps was estimated at over 14.1 million naira. The Attorney General at the time, Olu Onaguruwa, would go further to state that the arrest of Akubo Eze was only possible because of the cooperation of foreign drug officials, and he stated his displeasure in the NDLEA, saying that sometimes the drug would just turn into sand or gari, and they were totally fed up. And just like he had stated, the Director General of the NDLEA at the time, Bapa Jamare, was conveniently out of the country, and though further reports are going to show that there was a whole syndicate behind Akubo Eze, most especially a woman by name Ms. Obiageli Okereke, the court cases was one of the highlights of his story, as his reported disposition was one of someone who was completely undisturbed by whatever was going on. He went on to make statements in the court such as, "It is not for me to tell you that my wife is pregnant in order for you to reduce my sentence, but to leave you to go on with your judgment." This is just one of the many things he said in court that showed he was completely undisturbed. He was later sent to jail for 25 years, which is 115-year sentence for a 5 out of 6 counts to run concurrently. But whilst all of this was happening, the Nigerians in the diaspora, most especially in Chicago, were building a drug ring that became so influential that it affects the Nigerian politics today. Well, there you have it. These were the 2 major cases that broke what was really going on within the drug trade in Nigeria, and how the drug agency were complicit in many of the dealings that went on.